If you're looking to make the optimal amount of profits from an animal, you need to do one of two things. You can choose the breed that's got the widest scope of uses to it, or the one that fetches the highest price, or even the ones that have a few unexpected products that they can offer alongside the usual meat, milk, and eggs. But what animal in every one of the species actually brings in the most profit from birth to sale? Let's break it down, starting at the smallest of our farm helpers, the fowl, and work our way up to the mighty cattle. Fowl species can range from chickens to turkeys to quail. The wildfowl aren't as plentiful in species variation that can be farmed, so let's focus on those first. The jumbo Coturnix quail are by far the best layers, and they produce the biggest carcass of the small birds. It's not uncommon to get a large male that slaughters out at 2 pounds if they're grown out completely. And hens can lay an egg each day in peak season. Even in winter when they aren't as efficient, you can still get 1 egg every 2 days from a hen. The only special consideration to take with quail is that they need to be incubated to hatch, but that's true of all quail. Coturnixes are cheaper, less prone to disease, and more productive than all of the other species. Our pick for the most productive turkey is the Beltsville small white turkeys. They aren't the largest of all the turkeys, but they still slaughter at a respectable 9 pounds. It's their egg production that pushes them over the finish line. You can expect 180 eggs a year from a hen, and they are perfectly capable of hatching their own chicks, and don't have the high chick mortality rates that other turkeys do. Adding in their relative hardiness and capability of feeding themselves, if they're given the room to do so, they are the most cost-efficient to raise, and therefore the most profitable. Ducks come in all shapes and sizes. Some are high maintenance and some are perfectly efficient at taking care of themselves. Now, ducks have never been known as the most proficient egg layers, though there are some breeds that were bred for that purpose in mind. And of all the fowl, outside of chickens, their meat and eggs are by far the most sellable. Khaki Campbells lay the most eggs a year, with an egg every 36 to 48 hours per hen. Yes, they are perfectly suitable for their meat too, but we would put our money on the Indian runner ducks instead. Drakes can weigh in at 5 to 6 pounds apiece, so they are a little smaller and they lay a good 300 eggs a year. What makes them so much more attractive is the lack of care required for them. They enjoy water, but they don't absolutely need a pond. If left to range freely, they will only need supplemental food from you because they'll forage for the rest themselves. They'll hatch and care for their young all on their own, and they can withstand a wider scope of weather conditions than the other species that prefer things on the cooler side. Indian runners have the additional benefit of being fabulous little pest control officers. They don't damage greenery, instead seeking out the slugs and bugs that they prefer. Running them through greenhouses, vineyards, or any field for that matter will give them all the protein they need. Now for what most of us are here for when it comes to the fowl, the ultra-versatile chicken. Before we get into breeds, remember, they can be utilized for land clearing, the manure is highly sought after, and there's even a little money to be made from their feathers if you're really pushing to get as much as you can from them. Now the scope is wide here, and after taking climate adaptability, egg production, carcass weight, hatchability, and general hardiness into account, we've decided to settle on the majestic Australorp and the Lowman Brown. Rhode Island Reds, Plymouths, and the Sussex weren't far behind, but at the end of the day, the Wyandottes and the Sussex just fell slightly short with the amount of eggs they produce, and the Rhodie's egg production goes down if the weather is too hot. Surprisingly, the Australorp, with its almost completely black body, holds up well in heat and deep snow. They can comfortably lay 300 eggs a year, and they slaughter at a respectable 9 pounds for the roosters. Lohmann Browns are a little more compact than the Australorps, but they lay the same amount of eggs, have very little aggression unlike the Australorp, and they are incredible hatchers and mothers. Relatively long-lived and consistent, their Rhode Island red background gives them good egg-laying rates, and their climate adaptability comes from their white rock heritage. Lohmanns are just a good hardy chicken for smaller spaces, and they're relaxed enough to fit into a family-style homestead environment without any more effort required than any other chicken. Normally, hybrid breeds don't make an appearance on this channel, but this breed has been stable for almost 100 years, so they are a breed in their own right, and they don't get nearly as much recognition as the rest. Before we get into the hooved varieties of livestock, we need to look at the rabbits. The Flemish Giant will give you the biggest weight, at anywhere between 12 and 20 pounds, and predictably their sheer size and good fur makes them the most popular breed in the United States. But we like to lean more toward the chinchillas. They're a good meat rabbit, clocking in at around 7 pounds when they're grown out fully. But it's their fur and ease of care that gives them a slight edge. The fur's unique coloring makes them highly valued in the fashion industry, but honestly, the pelt is so practical and warm that it's understandably more sought after for its warmth, and the beauty is just an extra cherry on the cake. They grow out faster than the Flemish, and their size-to-feed ratio in comparison to their growth makes them much more economical to keep in the long term. And we honestly would like to give this rare breed a little push. There's no reason that this high-value animal should be in such dangerously low numbers, especially given their ease of care and high-quality meat and fur. Now we get into our hooved farm animals. And here we're going to take things on a little differently. We're going to look at meat, milk, and dual purpose separately. The top milk-producing sheep, in our opinion, is the Lacone. There are breeds that can give more, but none that can compare in butterfat and protein content. They produce excellent cheese and yogurts and are highly sought after by the small market that does consume sheep's milk. The British milk sheep is a close contender, and they are much more adaptable and affordable to get your hands on. The best wool sheep is definitely the Merino. There is no higher quality fiber produced while still being a fantastic meat sheep too. If the Merino had milk too, there would be no competition as to what is the best sheep on the market. For meat alone, it's a three-way tie between the Suffolk, which does well in cooler temperatures, and the Dorper and the Dorsets, who do well in high heat and sparse grazing, and East Frisian sheep do it all. They've got very high-quality wool, milk production that's on the higher end, and they taste great, but they are only suited for the cooler northern climates. But if the sheep are a little too boring for you and you want to up the ante with all of the entertainment and shenanigans, there's always goats. For meat, the Kalahari Red stands victorious with that monstrously big, muscular body. We love the South African breeds over here. Never is there a breed, no matter what the species, that's subpar or even average. They know their rugby, their wine, and they sure know their meat. For milk, the Saanens are extraordinary. The Saanens have above-average milk, though there are breeds that have better quality, but none produce more. 3 gallons a day per ewe is nothing to scoff at, and their meat is a scotch above average too, so you can absolutely breed them for both purposes, especially since they're quite adaptable to almost any climate. For fleece, the Purdon goat from Russia produces the finest cashmere of all the goat breeds, but they are hard to procure and they are only suited for cold climates. The Nigora from the Americas are much better for climate adaptation. They produce good meat and they have a wide variety of wool that they can give off. Everything from cashmere quality to industrial use, depending on the breeding and your flock's health. Our favorite of all, though, is surprisingly the teeny tiny Nigerian pygmy goat. Yep, they're small and they don't come with the addition of fleece. But despite their small stature, they still give a good 2 to 3 quarts of milk a day per ewe. They have excellent carcass quality and they have the rare advantage of being suitable for penning. Goats don't do well in holdings, they need space for grazing and to get rid of all of that rambunctious and often destructive energy. But not the Nigerian pygmies. They're sweet, docile, and you can raise so much more on less land than any other goat. Up next is the oinkers. We've settled on two breeds that we think will be the most profitable for you outside of factory farming. The first and expected place goes to the Duroc. Heritage breeds tend to mature slower and have less piglets per farrowing, but the Durocs can be ready for slaughter in 5 to 6 months from birth, and if left to grow out, they'll reach maturity at 2 years of age. And with a dozen or so piglets in every litter, they'll breed more than adequately to keep your operation constantly growing. They have good chops, bacon, and good marbling throughout. But it's their temperament and ease of care that pushes them across the finish line at the end of the day. Yes, a pig is still a massive animal, and especially during mating season, any boar will get a little more antsy than usual, but they are more relaxed than most other breeds. The second pick on our list is the Idaho pasture pig, or IPP for short. IPPs are a highly unusual breed in the sense that it is one of only 2 breeds that can be fed off pasture. Just like a cow or a sheep, IPPs can feed themselves completely off grass and forage for up to 80% of their diets. The other 20% can be made up with additional protein and corn to ensure that they put on the appropriate amount of growth and fat, but that's all the extra care that they really need from you. They have great, dark red, marbled meat, and the product just tastes so much sweeter than corn-fed pork does. It's the low cost of growing them out and their high-quality cut that brings them into the fold as one of the fastest-spreading homestead pigs in the United States. It's an interesting and relatively new breed, but we have high hopes for this friendly pasture swine, and it's only a matter of time before they dominate the market. Angus cattle are probably the most prominent cattle breed in the US, and with good reason. They produce a very high-quality marbled cut, and they're pretty hardy and adaptable. The red and the black don't differ much in product, though the red is a little more expensive due to their rarity. Wagyu beef gets a better price at market value, but they are expensive to get and require more care than the other cattle to ensure that they have that very specific flavor profile. So the cost of care brings the profits down somewhat. For our top milkers, our favorite is the Jersey cow. The Holsteins give a little more than Jerseys, but Jerseys have better protein and butter fat, meaning that it sells for more. Jerseys are also so trusting and docile that they are quite a charming subject to work with for their handlers. You can expect 6 gallons a day in peak season. For the dual-purpose choices, we have the Highland cows for their good, yet lean, carcass, and highly sought-after shaggy coat. There are few breeds that are affordable enough to breed, hardy enough to keep, and that can produce a hide that good. Highlands can produce about 2 gallons of milk a day. And even though that's not quite the amount for big sales, it is enough for a side hustle in the household, especially since their milk has the highest butterfat content of all the cattle breeds. And then there's the Dexters if you need something a little more compact. Dexters give good quality milk, they have excellent meat, and their leather can be added to their value. But it's the ease of care that gives Dexters their edge. If they've got room, they'll feed themselves. And even if they don't have free range, Dexters are so chilled out that they can be fenced in if your land can't spare to give up too much room for them. They're great at rotational grazing and clearing up acreages in between crop planting. Seriously, Dexters were made to be the homesteader's helper and producer. And that, friends, completes our list of top-value livestock in every category. Some of the rarer farm animals were given a skip for this round. Alpacas, yaks, and buffalo are all very much farmable, but with so few varieties and breeds to compare to, it's mostly going to depend on what you can get your hands on. Do you agree with our top picks, or have you got other opinions on any of them? Please let us know in the comments below. We'd love to get your feedback. There's no commentary more valuable than from those who have hands-on experience. And while you're at it, leave a like and share with other like-minded people who are interested in adding to their land. See you next week. Cheers!